Warning: the following contains explicit language and subject matter that may not be suitable for younger listeners, church folk, and people who enjoy kale smoothies.
Bring it up! Bring it up! Bring it up!
What's wrong with you?
But sister, they are just niños trying to release their wiggles.
Ignacio, they are wrestling in a sacred place.
Okay, orphans, listen to me. Listen to Ignacio. I know it is fun to wrestle. A nice pile drive to the face, or a punch to the face. But you cannot do it, because it is in the Bible not to wrestle your neighbor.
So you've never wrestled?
Me? No, come on, don't be crazy. Listen, I know the wrestlers get all the fancy ladies, and the clothes, and the free creams and lotions. But my life is good. Really good. I get to wake up every morning at 5 a.m. and make some soup. It's the best. Love it. I get to lay in a bed by myself all of my life. It's fantastic.
Well, either way, it's in. So, welcome back to APodAmongstMen. I'm your host, Steve B, a.k.a. Oroku Saki Bomb, a.k.a. Pimp Hand of the King. I'm trying that out. That's all new.
Yeah.
I'm here with my friend Tim Disbrow. Tim, say hello.
Hey, everyone. How are you?
So, Tim is a filmmaker. Can I say professionally or no?
Yeah, I mean, it's the only thing I do for money, so I guess.
Yeah. But, so me and Tim go way back.
Yeah.
Tim were friends for quite some time before. And Tim has some work out that maybe you've seen if you have Amazon Prime, if you've been into wrestling at all. Tim, you made the film Card Subject to Change, documentary about independent wrestling.
Guilty.
Great film, man.
Thank
I was
you.
there at the premiere.
Yes, you are.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Filmmaker. I guess for the last 5 or 6 years, more television producer. But that's my passion and something that I, took the leap, whatever cliche you want to use, and
Took the first steps and actually,
I just kind of
did
did
something.
It. Yeah, I just kind of went and did it, and so far so good. It's working out. It's all I've done. Yeah.
So, what actually made you start? I know everybody wants to record something, and
Yeah.
I went to a party. I brought my mom's camera. We're gonna make a film about parties.
Yeah.
But you actually did it for real. You picked a subject and you did work. You did hundreds and hundreds of hours of work.
The thing that I didn't do is maybe more of what's important or whatever. Everyone who I know, even other filmmakers or people who I work with now, they have. You should see this thing I made in high school. It's hysterical.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you should see this thing I did in middle school. I got my mom's camcorder, and it's so funny. And
I got a few of those myself.
Yeah, I never did that.
No?
I never did that. To me, I was such a pessimist, and I still am in a lot of ways. But it was, I always wanted to.
You're in good company, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think most sane people are pessimists. That's just my opinion. My grandfather was a scientist. He had a very straight-laced job.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
a scientist. What kind of scientist?
Yeah, he was a metallurgist.
Oh, okay.
And he worked for a company that had government contracts.
Ooh, okay.
So he did testing on metals for the B-2 bomber and NASA spaceships and
I
stuff.
wish
Yeah,
I
it's
was
cool.
more into conspiracy theories.
It's cool.
We could go deep on that.
He saw a lot of stuff. I went to his laboratory when I was a little kid. It was super cool. He brought home a lot of stuff that we probably weren't supposed to have. But no, but he was really sort of had a straight-laced job. Was not a creative person in any way, and didn't necessarily have a great appreciation for the arts or anything. But movies were sacred. He had this collection of VHS tapes that were numbered, and he had a piece of paper that he had typed on the typewriter.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1, Casablanca. Number 2, The Godfather. Number 3. And that collection was like the holy grail to him and to me. And my mother was single, and I spent a lot of time over at my grandparents as a young kid. He didn't have Mr. Rogers VHS or Barney or...
You were watching adult stuff.
Yeah, he popped on Cecil B. DeMille's Greatest Show on Earth because it was about the circus, and he thought I just wouldn't catch the parts about how Jimmy Stewart had killed his wife in the movie. So I had this wealth of, I used to watch, I called it, Cops and Robbers. It was Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, So I was watching these big, really important movies at 4.
Jesus.
So I kind of learned early to really respect film, I guess.
That goes a long way. I was watching Howard the Duck when I was 4.
Yes.
And, hundreds of times, as most kids do.
I
wasn't watching White Heat.
Look, I didn't miss Howard the Duck, but I did watch, Lawrence of Arabia. I think, from then I was, wow, that's amazing that people can do that. Mm-hmm. I didn't think I could do that. That's not something that Tim from Flemington, New Jersey was going to get to do, make movies. And I got to give my high school credit. I took TV in high school because it looked easy.
They had a class for that?
Yeah, elective TV. I was, psh.
Dude, I feel like I got so boned. Because I went to Bridgewater, and I don't know, maybe I just missed it and I didn't pay attention, but there wasn't any cool classes like that.
We had radio and TV, and they had a 1,000-watt radio station, which is more than, most college stations are.
It's like more than SOU, right?
Yeah, it's huge. It was like the whole county. I went to 100 Central in Flemington, and it was. So I took radio. At first, I was obsessed with Howard Stern since I was like
anybody
9,
who likes radio.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I was way too young. I was listening to YSP out of Philadelphia. I was listening to Howard Stern. I was like, I'm going to be Howard Stern. But I have this voice my whole life, so it's not a good voice for radio.
What's wrong with it?
I don't know. I think it's a crappy voice.
Everybody thinks your voice is crappy.
That's true. But radio was also dying.
Yeah.
Even then, we had a teacher who was like, don't go into the radio business. Here's how you record a thing. And we're like, well, why are you teaching us this?
I think that was a point where everybody saw, all right, it's...
Yeah, it was like 2002 or something, and it was just sort of not what it was. But TV class, and I remember opening the doors to the TV studio for the first day, and it was literally in my mind, it's like that, like moment. Like there were cameras and there was lights and it's like, holy shit, this is real. Like you can do this. Like, it's a real thing. So that was largely what sparked me doing anything, was like my high school, really.
Well, how do they do it? Did they have obviously, I'm sure they had cameras you could use, and
yeah. So there was a TV program. So it wasn't like a film program. It was TV. So it was like studio television.
Oh, okay.
So like news.
Gotcha.
Essentially, and we would shoot the morning announcements, which were done newscast style. And then what they would do is they would have. We would do all those things, and we'd do little projects and run around with camcorders and learn 3-point lighting and, sort of all the stuff. And then every year, I guess, they selected one, not selected, that sounds whatever, but they gave an opportunity to have one independent study in film.
Okay.
And they did one student a year. And when I was a senior, they offered me that. Because I think they just saw that I wanted to just nerd around with the cameras, and I was way into it and super into film. So they gave me that opportunity, and I did my first sort of short film in that class, and that was...
What was it?
It was called The Test.
Okay.
And it was about... it was sort of... it's awful, but it was... it was a... like a psychological thriller about a kid who was like he had been captured by the government and he was going to be tortured, and it was this horrible strenuous experience for him, and then of course he snaps out of it, and it's the SATs, which was very weighed on me very heavily in senior year of high school. So
that's pretty. That's the standard stuff for most high school students. Yeah. Psychological thrillers about government torture programs.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, and really, the boogeyman is the SAT.
Yeah, hell yeah, it's the SATs. You should see my score. It was horrible.
So, well, after you graduated, did you go, did you decide you bought your own equipment? How did it work?
Yeah, I bought, during making The Test in my senior year of high school, I bought a camcorder from Best Buy. At the time, it was like a really schnazzy one.
But those are the ones you actually had to buy the film, like the tape.
Tapes, yeah. It was a really high end one. It was mini DV tape.
Okay.
Which was like, holy shit, dude, I'm shooting on mini DV. It was like, it was big time because everyone else was shooting on high 8. So no, yeah, it was mini DV tapes, and so my filmmaking and high school stuff corresponds a lot with my life in wrestling.
Okay.
The timeline is sort of concurrent. So by that time, I had already actually been in wrestling for a while.
That was back when people used to do like the backyard wrestling.
Yeah, but I was working in pro wrestling already.
Like the actual like the shows in the film, like
Correct.
the VFWs and like the actual the venues.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So I had already been in that world for 4 years at that point. So I started making cards so to change my senior year of high school when I bought that camera. At the same time, I was so even though the test was finished first, Card Subject to Change was the first thing I ever started.
Well, I know when I first met you,
Yeah.
like that was already in progress.
Yeah, it was in progress when most people met me because it took so goddamn long.
How long, like total, from start to finish?
Started it in 2006, probably 2005. Like 2005, 2006, around that time. I don't know when I bought the camera. And finished it in 2010. It came out in 2011. So yeah, it was a big chunk of my life.
Well, you don't have like a staff. You don't have like you don't have. What's your crew like? It's just
me.
You. Yeah.
It was me in a 2001 Volkswagen Jetta. That was the whole crew.
Well, so when you started, obviously you're just some kid with a camcorder.
Yeah.
But there was clearly a point in time when it went from somebody just making a film for fun to someone making a film for real.
Yeah.
What would you say was the point like where it crossed over?
To tell this story better, I probably have to go back a little, if you don't mind.
Hit me.
So you kind of have to how I got into wrestling.
Okay. So yeah, let's get down to brass tacks here.
Because this is really the two worlds are very my origin story. They really are intertwined. My grandfather also liked wrestling.
Okay.
And he was born in Newark, New Jersey, which was a hotbed for wrestling in the 40s and 30s. So he had seen it back then. He was not like a big WWF fan.
Not because that was more of like our generation, the 80s, really.
Yeah. I was Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, whatever.
That was when it got like glitzy and pop culture-y.
Big time. I liked that. Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, whatever.
Who didn't?
94, 95 comes, and I think most of us, we gave up on wrestling because around that time, it lulled. All my friends were over it. I was over it. It was out of my life.
What was it like? Because I know for me, like me and Drew, we were really big into it when NWO was big.
So that's when it came back.
Okay,
that's when everyone else was like, "Yo, it's back!
Yeah,
wrestling's cool again."
Sting? Yeah. He's not dead, bro.
Yeah, it came back.
He looks like the Crow.
Yeah, Hulk Hogan's got a beard. He's wearing black pants. The whole thing's crazy.
And now he's from Hollywood. I thought he was from Florida.
Yeah, it never made any sense. So
and Razor Ramon isn't Hispanic anymore.
Right. All of a sudden, his whole ethnicity changed. Diesel's not driving trucks. It was like a whole thing. So it got cool again. 96. For me, that's when I got really into it. Then I started buying magazines and learning about ECW. ECW for me was.
Okay.
That was it. That's what did it for me.
Did you play any of the video games around that era?
I was never a video game guy.
Because
I had N64, so I had WCW versus NWO World Tour.
Okay, because they had some really good wrestling games, like WrestleMania 2000.
I had that one too.
That one was the tits.
And maybe Raw is War, the first game, the Acclaim.
Oh, that was
And everyone had mitten hands.
Yeah,
that was.
I remember that one. Yeah,
it was awful.
The WCW versions were just light years ahead.
Yes, they were.
I remember
much better games.
Me and Drew sat. It was actually the year 2000, New Year's Eve. And instead of watching the ball, we played that game all night, all through.
That was great stuff. I stopped at N64 though. I never kept up with video games. But
sorry to cut you off.
No, that's okay. No,
ECW
for me. I followed him in the magazines. I couldn't watch it because I couldn't find anywhere to watch it because it was so underground at that point. Just by virtue of it didn't have national television.
Okay.
Long story short, I ended up getting a rabbit ears television in my bedroom for my ninth birthday.
For you young kids out there, he's referring to TV antennas.
Yeah, yeah, TV with antennas, but it was a TV VCR combo, so I could watch any tape I had. But I didn't have cable.
Okay.
But on the antennas, I would pick up Philadelphia TV, and I picked up ECW on WGTW, channel 48. I was watching ECW at 9 years old, and I was like, "This is it! I found it." To hell with Hulk Hogan. To hell, it was Sabu and Terry Funk and all these guys. I was
This is my tribe.
This is it. These are my people. I'd seen them in the magazines, and Cactus Jack had been there, and I knew he was gone. He was in WWE now, WWF now.
He just made me have a flashback. Terry Funk. Like, wasn't he one of the bouncers in Roadhouse?
Yes. Hell yeah, he was. One of my favorites of all time. And so that's what hooked me. It was that, and eventually, I'm making this the longest story ever, but my grandfather and I were out at a diner in Hazlitt, New Jersey for some whatever reason, buying furniture or something.
Probably, to eat.
Yeah, well, that's why we were at the diner. Yeah, certainly. Why we were in Hazlitt, I don't know the reason there, but we ended up there, and there was a poster on the door of the diner that said NWA Wrestling Sabu, real big red letters. I went, "Oh, Granddad, it's Sabu. It's that guy from ECW on the TV from Philadelphia." So, "Oh, okay, well, let's go." And we went to it, and basically he called the wrong number to get tickets. Instead of calling the ticket number, he called the wrestling office number. And he got the promoter, and the promoter ended up talking. They ended up talking to Italians,
Yeah, back in those days, you could just get the wrong number and have a 20-minute conversation with someone.
Yeah, they turned into great friends, in an hour or whatever. And basically, for years after that, we went front row to NWA, what was NWA Jersey at the time, which ran in the high schools, and had all the sort of leftover stars, the people who had left WCW or WWE.
Yeah, and the guys kind of on their way out.
Yeah, or on their way up. Both. It was like young guys and old guys.
Kind of like in the place Mickey Rourke from The Wrestler.
100%.
Yeah,
a little better than that.
Yeah, well, he was in a bit of a rough patch.
Yeah, that was
to say the least.
That was pretty low. But these were high school gyms. 1,000 people, 500 people. They had good crowds. So, ended up becoming obsessed with that and front row for years with my grandfather. Eventually, I heard they needed a fundraiser in Flemington, and I said, "Hey, the NWA does fundraiser. I hear them every show. They go, if you need a fundraiser, call the NWA. It's a great fundraiser, for your booster club." And they needed a fundraiser for a memorial that they were trying to raise money for. It was actually a 9/11 memorial they're trying to raise money for. And I said, "Hey,
I know some guys.
I know a guy
Yeah.
that could come here and put on a wrestling show and raise you a bunch of money."
How do you feel about tights?
Yeah, I was like, "You into guys in tights? Because we could get this thing built.
We could really put this thing over the top."
This memorial is going to be done in an hour if you get these guys over here. So that's what happened. We ended up early 2002. I ended up putting this show together. And after that, I was in middle school, and I put I didn't put the show together, but I connected the parties who needed to be connected, and basically that got my foot in the door. You
want to say hi?
No, I want to say something different.
Go ahead, say it.
Coming out soon, my YouTube channel, Dimension Boy. Just give me one subscriber.
Good night, buddy. I love you.
Okay, I'm taking a snack.
It's usually once an episode that happens.
It's a plug.
Yeah, it's a podcast.
Hey, what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
Charge him.
I charge him. I charge him in sleeper holds.
There you go.
All right. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. But after I arranged that show, basically the promoter was like, "Well, look, if you can arrange a show, you can certainly set up the ring. You can help me set up chairs, So I started doing that. 2002 for NWA, and I was setting up the chairs and setting up the ring, and I was, probably 80 pounds, and I couldn't really carry much or do. I was mostly useless, but they let me stick around, and eventually I worked my way into, actually being in the company a little bit. Yeah.
Well, you got to be a ref at one point, right?
Yeah. So I wanted to be a wrestler. But
we all did.
I was not born with what you need to be a wrestler, because I was probably 15 and I weighed 100 pounds, soaking wet, pockets full of pennies, holding a cinder block, and I was like, yeah, this wrestling thing ain't gonna work out, and God bless them. Some of the wrestlers who were there allowed me sort of to try, and they were kind of old school, in their approach. It was basically, all right, you want to be a wrestler, get in the ring, and they just beat the shit out of me for weeks on end. And I was 15, and they really, I'm gonna tell you what, it was not okay looking back on it. You know what I mean? Like now at 31, I go, if I beat the shit out of a 15-year-old the way they beat the shit out of me, it was kind of not cool.
It's amazing. You know what? It's amazing if you look back at our lives.
Yeah.
Because you're how old now?
31.
31. So we're in, like I always say to people, we're in that generation. We're in that sweet spot between Gen X and like the later millennials and the iGen and everything, where we grew up. We're old enough to remember the world without the internet.
Yes.
So we're also old enough to have grown up with it, though.
Yes.
So we grew up and we saw how things were different. We know the old school and the new school.
Yeah.
But obviously when we were young, it was still old school. And just some of the stuff that happened to us was just normal back then. Yeah. And if you look through it, from today's perspective, it's like, that was really fucked up.
Yeah. I actually think about that a lot. I mean, especially wrestling is a weird business, and everyone I know who's either not into it or whatever, they very quickly pass it off as, no, that's fucking bullshit,
Yeah.
But you got to understand the people in it take it really seriously.
Well, why is wrestling bullshit? I mean, even if you were to go so far and say, "Oh, wrestling's fake,"
Yeah.
Well, you watch movies.
I was gonna say
they're acting.
Vin Diesel didn't really kill that guy,
Yeah.
It's like
Tobey Maguire, not really Spider-Man.
Yeah. But people have a hard time with it because it's presented as real.
Yeah.
The presentation is where people get tripped.
But I don't know. It's like an arbitrary.
It's ridiculous.
Label we put on it. You know what I mean?
Completely ridiculous.
Because we accept other things that are pretty much the same.
Are you going to go to see a play, and halfway through Hamlet, you're just going to stand up and go, bullshit?
That fucking guy got shot. How is he here at the end bowing?
I mean, no one thinks twice.
Yeah.
I really look, wrestling. Someone much smarter than me. It's theater in the round. It's a theatrical fight scene done in one take in the round. I mean, that's what wrestling is. Yeah. And why people have such a goddamn hard time, with that is beyond me. But I do know at 15, they beat the living shit out of me. and I understand, and I even understood then why they did it. Mm-hmm. Because they had 1 million kids who came through, and the promoter let them set up chairs and let them set up the ring. And they went, I want to be a wrestler. So they beat the snot out of them until they stopped coming.
I mean, but did you really feel like you were in harm or anything?
No. But, I mean, they would chop. They would put me in the corner and hit me with the Ric Flair chops until my chest was bleeding. I mean, I was 15. It was like, and they would run drills. It would be, tackle, drop down, hip toss, tackle, drop down, hip toss, tackle, drop down, until you were throwing up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were just trying to sort of weed out the.
Ooh, I mean, that's just the way things work.
Yeah,
back then.
100%.
It's different, obviously, to look at it now.
Yeah,
it's like of course it seems messed up, but at the time it was,
Yeah, no, and
that's what you were getting into.
Sure,
and I wanted to make sure you knew what you were signing up for.
Exactly, and I saw a lot of people come through 1 week. Tackle, drop down, hip toss, tackle, drop down, hip toss, throw up on the side of the ring and never show up again.
You know what? I'm going to go study accounting.
Yeah. and they just, they're like, oh, maybe this isn't for me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't for me at all.
No, I'm sure it's not for most people.
But I just kept doing it because I was like, I have this opportunity. I got to do it. And eventually they're like, all right, listen, kid, this isn't going to happen for you as a wrestler.
You got heart, kid.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you keep coming, but, you get a striped shirt. It's basically go to Foot Locker, get a striped shirt, and come back. So then I did. Yeah, I ended up being a referee, and I was a referee for like 4 years, and I refereed a couple hundred matches.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So now, how does the documentary take hold?
So
now?
as I'm doing that, I'm also taking TV class. So the two things are happening.
So still in high school.
Yeah, I was still in high school. So the two things are happening in tandem. And taking TV, I remember they said in one of the classes, documentaries are difficult. Documentaries are not. It's not just pick up a camera and whatever. It's about having access.
Okay.
You have to have incredible access that no one else has.
And you got to be able to present something to people that they can't find elsewhere.
100%.
Gotcha.
So I'm sitting there going, oh, shit. I have access.
I know some guys.
I have access to wrestling.
What's the policy on tights?
Yeah. I was like, I have access to wrestling. I mean, I have access like no one else that I ever saw. because I was in the ring.
Yeah.
I was doing it, at a pretty legit level for that time. Outside of WWF at the time, WCW was gone, but the New Jersey independent scene was pretty popping. It was like a pretty.
I
legit,
remember seeing the flyers
Yeah,
around.
it was pretty legit. And big stars. I had an opportunity to work with some cool people, so I was like, I have access to this. Like, I'm going to buy a camcorder. And I went to the promoter, who obviously let me in the business, 4 years earlier. And so he's pretty loose with his policies. And I said, hey, can I start filming some stuff? And he was like, yeah, all right. Just don't
Don't get in the way.
Don't be a pain in the ass. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I would film little interviews before the matches. And then I would have to put on the referee shirt and go do the match, go work. And then I got a little more serious about it, and I started, saying, hey, in between the matches, is it cool if I like put on a hoodie to cover up my ref shirt and just shoot some stuff? Yeah, okay. They didn't love that idea, but okay. So then, after high school ended that summer, I was filming a little bit, and I had this idea. It was going to be called Card Subject to Change. I had the name, and it was in my head, but I didn't really know what it was yet. And at that point, it was just a collection of. It was a bunch of interviews with people that,
Just a loose collection of footage.
yeah, and people who, God bless them, they're good people. I like them all, but you wouldn't, now you'd watch it and you'd have no idea who any of them were. I didn't have the kind of access that I really thought I had.
Gotcha.
I had the access physically for me. I didn't have it for a camera.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's easy to go talk to people. It's another
Yeah.
thing to talk to people with a
With
camera in their face.
They're like, what the fuck is this? Get out of
Yeah.
here. So the guy who ran the concessions, the T-shirts, and they called it the gimmick table.
Okay.
The guy who sold the gimmicks at wrestling was this big Italian guy, big scary Italian guy. And I was over by his table because I used to just check out the merch.
Big, scary Italian guy, as we often are.
Yes. I was just checking out the merch.
Or short and loud.
Right, yeah, either one. He happened to be big and loud.
Okay.
So I heard him talking to someone else. He goes, yeah, what I'd really like to do is produce some independent films. And ping, do I have a proposal for you? I said, hey, I'm Tim. I'm the referee. Yeah. So I've had this idea. I'm trying to make this documentary about wrestling, and if you want to produce films, I want to make films. I'm sorry. I thought, hey, this is meant to be. It's like, well, as Italians do, meet me at the diner on this date, and we'll talk.
You meet me here. I'll let you know if you're disqualified or not, Mr. Referee.
Exactly. So I went with a proposal. I typed up this big proposal, and I said, here's what I think it's going to cost, and whatever, here's what I'm looking to do. And I got there, and he said, yeah, this is very interesting. Then he also revealed to me something I didn't know about him, because I thought he was just a guy who sold the gimmicks at the local shows. He was an agent of wrestlers. He represented a lot of big wrestlers for personal appearances.
And another door opened.
There opens another door. And he was also, he is, if anyone's a tri-state area wrestling aficionado, he runs a convention called Legends of the Ring, which is like a huge wrestling convention that's been going on since before conventions were cool. And it's like a who's who.
Okay.
Every year it's like A-list wrestlers come through. I had no idea that he had this sort of access. That's when things went from I'm just shooting a little couple videos to, oh shit, okay, we might really be able to do something here.
I gotcha.
And that's, yeah, so that's when.
So now, like, because you've had this, this access that 99% of people will never get.
Yeah.
What do you think that surprised you the most to learn about wrestlers as people, kind of as almost as a culture? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because it takes a very special person to get into that, I think.
Yeah.
It's tough because a lot of people just don't even know where to start, what to assume. Everything they've seen is either dramatized, on TV or in movies. How many people can you say know a wrestler, a professional wrestler?
Yeah, right. It's I'll be honest, I probably learned it before the movie because I learned it working, in it. I saw a different side of it once I had the camera.
Okay.
I think people, because I was low man on the totem pole as a referee. I was a young referee, and I got to do all the things I did, and I worked with top level guys at the time. But I wasn't sitting really talking to them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, they hold court a little bit in the locker room, and the young guys listen.
You get to be a fly on
you
the
go,
wall.
oh my God, like, Dusty Rhodes, and I sit, just sit and listen to him talk and listen to him put together the match, and go, oh my God, this is amazing. And but you don't really get to say Dusty, because if you.
You're not really getting below the surface.
It's mouth shut, ears open.
Gotcha.
In the locker room. Once I had the camera, once I'm making the documentary, now I'm getting to form relationships with people who, I idolized as a kid.
And that makes you visible now as a person.
Yeah, and and it validates you.
Yeah.
If you come with it, not only if you come with a camera, but if you come with a camera and it looks like you're actually doing something, because there's a lot of guys with cameras, a lot, especially around wrestling. A lot of guys with cameras. I was kid with camera and the big scary Italian guy who everyone knew. So he was my door into this. He opened up this whole other world. So it really was. Yeah, I got to see sort of a different side of it, and so I appreciated it for what it was. There's a few highlight moments when you look. The things that I always say to anyone if they say wrestling, if they're giving me a hard time about wrestling. I didn't do it a lot, but I would say in the time that I was a referee, it's no secret, the blood in wrestling is real blood, but the way it gets there is a little.
It's gotten by ill means.
Yeah, and part of the job of the referee sometimes is to handle that piece of equipment. And if anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about. To bleed in wrestling, wrestlers use a little sliver of a razor blade, and they cut themselves at the certain point in the match. There's like a real human moment that happens, like when you hand a guy a razor blade, and then he cuts himself, like in front of you.
Jesus,
you know what I mean? Like that's kind of an intense moment.
Well, just to hear you say it, and all of a sudden, just to vocalize it.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. So
it's trippy just to think about.
It is, so I've done it a couple ways, and there's a few ways that it's done. Again, I don't think I'm saying anything that hasn't already been said, but for some guys I held the blade, I had it in my pocket wrapped in tape, and then when the spot came in the match where time to pass it to them, they get hit with the chair, and then I go over, oh my God, are you okay, are you okay? I'm loudly saying for the front row, are you okay, while my left hand is passing them the blade, and then I've done it the other way where I've taken the blade after they've kind of. That is like the most humanizing sort of thing about wrestling. Like,
it sounds like almost like a gang initiation in a prison. Like pass off the shiv to somebody like a sharpened toothbrush.
In some ways, I mean, yeah, I guess it is. But looking back on it, like that's a look. If you're gonna tell a guy something that he does is fake, when he's willing to take a razor blade and slice his face open, so that 150 people in Manville, New Jersey can get a fucking little thrill out of it.
It's a lot more real than what most people do.
Yeah, I mean, go tell that guy it's fake. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of a bullshit, So that's
it's insulting.
It is. It really is, because it's again, Hamlet, you go see Hamlet in New York or whatever, or any play where someone gets shot or there's blood, they're not going to take a razor. They're going to take a packet of fake blood.
Absolutely right.
So there's something about that. Like that.
I would argue that no other venue or any or no other
well, think about it.
Dramatic thing will use real blood.
Yeah, think about any other situation where someone goes, hey, we're going to tell a story out there in front of a crowd. I'm going to need you to slice your face open.
Yeah. And by the way, we're going to hit you with a metal chair, and we're going to throw you about
100%.
8-9 feet off the top rope. Yeah. But it'll be cool. They'll like it.
And they go,
the kids will love it.
The kids are going to love it. And the guy 99% of the time goes, okay. Yeah, okay. Sure. So that's a real sort of like there's a psychology study in that moment. You know what I mean? In the moment where the guy's about to cut his head open. You know what I mean? So like that showed me, from being in the ring, like how serious these guys take it. You know what I mean? Like that really put into perspective. Like this is their lives. You know what I mean? Like they mean this.
Well, what's like the common trait with all these guys that brings them into this line of work? You know what I mean? There's got to be something. There's some I don't want to say quirk, but there's some character trait that all these guys have to have in common.
What's interesting about it is that there's a lot of the guys, and you would think that a lot of them are big, loud personalities outside of the ring, and a lot of them are not. I mean, there is a good percentage, who are showmen, and they enjoy the show of it, and look, I can think back to matches. There was a match in Edison, New Jersey. I can think of it now for the light heavyweight championship. And I was refereeing, and those two guys had the crowd in the palm of their hand. And there is, I mean, you were on stage, you know what I mean? Like when you have a crowd and what you do controls a whole group of people, that's a trippy thing. It's easy to get off on that.
That's really interesting that you compared it to that, because you're right. It's the same thing. You're a performer.
Yeah, 100%.
It's just one person plays the guitar, one person wrestles, one person.
And wrestling.
It's a very good way of putting it, because now I understand exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I mean, and I'm thinking of this match in Edison, and I mean, it was probably 300 people in the crowd. It was not a big crowd overly, but these two guys, I would go down, 1, 2, and the guy would kick out, and the whole crowd is on their feet and go, oh,
yeah,
and you're just taking these people on this ride. You're telling a story, you know what I mean? So, I think that's what 99% of the people in wrestling, the people who get it, because I think there's also a percentage of people who get into wrestling for the wrong reasons.
What do you mean? Like, what are wrong reasons?
They're big guys. They look great. Someone goes, oh, you should be a wrestler. Yeah, I'll go be a wrestler and make money. And they don't get it. You know what I mean?
They don't have that initial love.
No, they don't want to tell a story. It's about telling a story.
Well, that's exactly the same thing as anything else. As being a performer, you have to have the passion for it, because it's the same thing with music. There's a lot of guys who join bands because they want to get chicks.
Right.
They don't love making music. They don't love playing. They just want to, be up there and be the center of attention for a few minutes.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the same. Like you said, it's the same across in every field. But I think in wrestling, and this is what I learned to round back to the actual question. What I learned about the guys is I learned what they wanted to do, and the guys who wanted to tell a story and take the audience on a ride. Those are the guys that I gravitated towards and wanted to listen. You just want to listen to them, and then what,
It's amazing when somebody has passion about something.
Incredible.
How it could be anything, but to hear them talk about it, they make it interesting.
100%. 100%. And I get through doing the movie. There's people who are in the movie who I'm thrilled they're in the movie, and they're some of my favorite wrestlers. I actually got to hang out with a lot of people who aren't in the movie. That's actually a much bigger part of the experience for me. But I mean, to go back, I mean, the one person who I wanted in the movie more than anything else in the world, I was going to crowbar him into it any way I could, was Terry Funk.
Okay.
And Kevin Sullivan, who's in the movie, who was also
he's featured heavily in the movie.
Heavily, yeah.
If you don't know, Kevin Sullivan, the Taskmaster.
Taskmaster.
He's been around.
The Taskmaster, brother, from Boston. And so once Kevin, got in the movie, that opened a lot of doors. Because I told...
Oh, that lends even more credibility.
Yeah, that's everything. Once you have that, it really opened the doors.
First big catch.
Big time. So, we're following around Kevin and whatever, and I'm telling him, we were at his house in Florida, and we were talking about our favorite wrestlers. He was telling me about his, I was talking about mine. And one of his favorites is also one of my favorites. It's Terry Funk. He said, "Fuck, Terry's so goddamn good," And I said, I would love to get Terry in the movie. And it's like, oh yeah, give me a phone, and then just called him immediately. Just got him on the phone. It's like, this is unreal. Like, this is unbelievable. So I remember, we arranged, to meet up, and he was going to be at a convention, some Comic-Con thing in New York. So Kevin and I went, and with James, the producer, and we were going up the elevator to go. I'm going to go interview Terry Funk, and I don't. This is not like I've met so many people I don't get starstruck. But I kind of don't, and I that sort of never. I never had that thing, I don't know.
I know. I always said
that sounds douchey, but
but I always said I never had it. I would never get starstruck, but then. The few times when I've met somebody who I who I knew, who I liked,
Yeah.
and it was famous to me,
Right.
then all of a sudden you freeze up and like, oh shit, this is what it's like.
Yeah. And so I remember coming off the elevator, and I've got bags and gear, and I'm struggling to get it all off the elevator, and Kevin walks in front of me and turns a corner. And as he turned the corner, I heard it's a very iconic voice, and he goes, "Goddamn, Kevin, good to see you." And it's Terry Funk around the corner. And I went, "Oh my God, like it's happening. It's happening." And I got to spend a day with Terry Funk, and it's like that to me. Like that moment of turning the corner and hearing it before I even turned the corner, just hearing his voice in person for the first time, like that's fucking awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, a guy like that, I interviewed him for about an hour, and he's in the film for about 40 seconds. And there's stuff on YouTube. I put a lot of the rest of the interview up, but, I got to spend what turned into, a few days over the course of a couple of years with Terry Funk. So
you got hooked up with some pretty big name people.
Yeah.
For in the process of this thing.
Yeah. I got to spend a lot of time around a lot of cool people.
Most notably for me, Diamond Dallas Page.
I did spend a little time around.
That was, and especially now, as he was featured in the Jake the Snake documentary.
Yes, yeah.
He was on Joe Rogan.
Yeah,
like he had a revitalization in the public eye, so to speak.
When I filmed with him briefly. I don't know him. He won't know me.
No,
I don't know him. But I filmed with him because Kevin set it up for me. Page, listen, I'm doing this documentary. This kid Timmy, who's doing his good kids, making a documentary. Would you do it was like that. And he was wearing this shirt that said YRG, and I was like, what the hell's YRG? And he's like, it's yoga for regular guys. And he had just started this thing.
Oh,
you know what I
man.
mean? And I was like, I'll be honest, I was sort of like, okay, well, good luck with that. Let's talk about wrestling now. He was like, as long as I can plug my thing, whatever. It's like, yeah, let's talk about wrestling a little bit, But he's I've done DDP yoga, and I can't keep doing it because it's a real fucking workout, man. that shit's legit. But no, I spent a lot of time around, very little time around DDP. But yeah.
Well. So, one of the things, obviously, see, this is what I do. I always have little words. I say obviously and all the time.
It's all right.
But back to the podcast. So, one of the guys that's featured in the film, Trent Acid,
Yes.
Tragically passed away.
Yes.
And he passed away before the film came out, correct?
Yeah, it had premiered,
Mm-hmm.
and then he passed away in between the premiere and when it did film festivals. So he actually passed away in between the two.
So, having seen the film and, obviously having made the film for you,
Yeah.
and after having seen the Jake the Snake documentary, for instance, you kind of get it almost leaves a bad taste in your mouth about what happens to these guys in the process of being in the business and when it's over.
Yeah.
What kind of stuff did you see doing this? Like, it seems like the business chews guys up and spits them out, and there's a small percentage that actually go on to do something else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was while we were recording or before, but we were talking about The Wrestler, the movie with Mickey Rourke. I mean, they nailed it. That was a little dramatic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
they took it a nudge further than real life, I think, in some instances. But it's really, really close to what a lot of these guys. It would be a much longer story, but that era of guys were coming out of wrestling at a time where it wasn't sort of what it is today, and that was all they have, that was a lot of their stories are like that. And Trent, the reason I started following Trent was because he was supposed to be the next big thing. Mm-hmm. He was at that time, 2004, 2005, he was part of a tag team, and him and his tag team partner in that scene, they were the biggest thing going. They were right up there with everyone. They were in the same conversation with the guys who are on TV now, who are on WWE every week.
They were kind of in that farm league, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, they were like right on the brink. They should have been called up.
Well, that's the thing. He was what, 22?
Yeah, he was young.
And he was considered a veteran within the independent league.
He had been around for a long time, and he had, at that point he was as high as you could go
before making it.
So my motivation, honestly, was I'm going to get him in the movie before he gets on TV. And what a great story.
Yeah.
Hey, here's his last hurrah in the independents before he goes on to WWE, or Impact, TNA at that point. So it was like, this is great. This is awesome. And I filmed with him for a couple weeks, and we'd meet him at the shows, and I didn't see anything alarming. You know what I mean? There was nothing to be worried about. I mean, he smelled like maybe he had smoked something before. But nothing not unusual.
A little weed never hurt anybody.
No, and especially in that world, that was the least of my. Please. So that was nothing. Then a couple shows we went, and we drove pretty far to meet him at certain shows, and then it started to become clear that there was something.
Had a few demons.
Yeah.
Do you find that's common with guys in that industry?
It's easy to see how it could happen. On the independents, I don't think it's as common because they're just not working as much.
Okay.
But for the guys who were in the 80s into the 90s, even in the independents, but who are working 5 times a week, like we said, it's predetermined,
but you're still
it's not
doing
fake,
the moves. Yeah.
I mean, Kevin Sullivan said it. He said in the movie, it's like getting into a car wreck every night. I mean, you're putting stress on your body, at an unreal level. So the big thing I saw a lot of was the painkillers. Yeah, I mean, before it was, now opioid crisis is the the scroll on every news channel, but before that was like a term. You know what I mean? It was painkillers. That was a big one that I saw a lot of, and I saw a lot of that with the older guys.
Okay.
So.
Well, it makes sense. Yeah, I mean, that many nights a year, because those guys, they work over 300 days a year. Like
yeah. I mean, the independent guys don't. I mean, the independent guys don't get that. They wish they could. They would love to because work. But
you said, the older guys who are kind of on their way back down, they've seen it at its peak.
Absolutely, and when they were in WWF, before that, the NWA system, which ran from the 40s through the 80s, they were working 6 days a week, twice on Sunday. I mean, it was like working to the bone, and a lot of them were doing 60-minute matches, and so their bodies are permanently hurting, and it's rough. I mean,
damage is damage.
Oh yeah, and if you go to the conventions now and look at some of the guys, even from 15 years ago, guys who were like in amazing. You look at them, just watch them walk down the hallway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just let them walk away from you and just watch them.
Well, you saw it, like we were talking about that Jake the Snake documentary.
Yeah.
You saw Scott Hall.
Yeah,
the guy was in a wheelchair.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a guy. Go back to 1992. I mean, he was a specimen.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Lex Luger. Lex Luger was a guy who I spent a lot of time around. Filmed with him for hours and hours and hours, and it never made the cut. It just didn't make the cut. But I filmed with him a lot, and I mean, he was they called him the total package, for Christ's sake.
That guy was ripped.
And now he's. He was in a wheelchair for a long time. Now I think he can walk again. I think he uses a cane. I think his body just fell apart. I mean, a lot of these guys, it's sad. Kevin Sullivan can't lift his arms above his shoulders. His hands are like mittens. He can't bend his fingers. The dexterity's all gone. Just the joint. The joints are all broken up. Jesus. I mean, it's rough. It's hard to and that's what sucks. You know what I mean? That's it's fake. Go tell Kevin Sullivan that. Yeah. Go tell Terry Funk that. Tell Sabu that. I mean, Sabu's body looks like a road map. You know what I mean? It's just scars and scars and scars. And the guy doesn't stop. He won't stop. He broke his back 6 months before I filmed with him. Didn't even know he broke his back. Just kept working.
How do you not know you broke your back?
Well, I mean... I'm thinking he had a clue.
Yeah.
That he might have, but
it hurts and I can't sit or stand.
Yeah, but, it was.
But I'll be all right.
Yeah, I mean, but these guys are willing to just push through, and for a lot of them, they have to. What other choice do they have?
Yeah, if that's your main.
That's what they do.
Gig.
Yeah, that's what they do, and it's that's where it's insulting. You know what I mean? Because these guys, what they do to themselves to make a few people happy that night.
See, that's it's another one of those industries where you can't half-ass it if you want to.
No.
If you want to make it all the way,
Yeah.
it's just like music, just like acting.
Yeah.
You can't just do I do it on the weekends and this. Like, no, you have to commit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to be apparent to anyone watching that you're not putting your all into it.
Yeah. Well, it's a shame now, with the wrestling the way it is, it's hard for guys to make a living doing it, and that's something else I saw a lot of while making the movie. And, I think the most I ever got paid as a referee ever was maybe $40 for the night. Maybe. That, in retrospect, maybe that's even high,
Yeah.
So it's a tough go. It's a tough road.
All right, so now you hooked up with Kevin.
Yeah.
He's opened a lot of doors for you. So how long was it before you finished collecting footage and started editing?
You don't ever want to say you're done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, but if I go the next time, something really good's going to happen. So I'm just going to film. I'll film next weekend too. You know what I mean? And I just kept doing that for a long time. Mm-hmm. By this time, I was a senior in college. I started the movie as a senior in high school. I finished the movie as a senior in college, basically.
Okay.
The professors in college, God bless them, because they really took me, under their wing and gave me a place to, look, if whoever accredits the schools is listening, forgive these people. But I got A's in a lot of classes that, I probably didn't deserve them in, but I was working my ass off to get this movie done. And the professors literally said, okay, look, here's what we're going to do. Here's a key to an office with an edit system. Go in there whenever you want. Don't come to class. Just go in there and finish this fucking thing. So my attendance on paper says perfect, flawless attendance for a few classes. But I was in this weird little edit room by myself. Thanks to my professors who saw that I really gave a shit about this thing and wanted to do it. And,
I think it's a sign of a good professor, good teacher.
100%.
You know what I mean? They recognize when a student has passion about something and is actually willing to do the work, even if it's not part of the curriculum.
100%. I mean, they created a totally custom curriculum for me because I was so entrenched in this movie.
That's how you have to teach some people. That's how people learn. Not everybody's good at sitting in a classroom and listening to someone speak for an hour.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
No, I was
dropped out.
Horrible student. Horrible.
I'm so bad.
Yeah, I was a horrible student. My grades even in college were I don't remember, but if you could pass with a D, I was a straight D student until I got to my major. I was a film major. So once I got into junior year and then I was on the dean's list for until the end of my career because I cared about film. I love film. You know what I mean? So and then by the time my senior year came and these professors got to know me and I saw like, look, I'm working on this thing, outside of school. It was not a school project. I was doing this thing. They're like, all right, look, you don't have to take editing class because you're editing this thing. So just go sit in this office. Here's the key. And I was there all hours of the night, relationships and friendships be damned, you know what I mean? And they were damned hard, but so it was, I thank those guys a lot.
Do you remember what part, like where in the creation process you were when Tony was staying with you?
Yeah.
Shout out to Tony Dugard.
Love that guy.
Old guest. Go back, listen to episode 7 on the show. Good friend of ours.
Yeah.
Former roommate of Tim's, so to speak.
Well, literally, as literal of he lived in my bedroom with me at my parents' house. Where would I have been during that? I was 18, 19, so...
God, you were only 18, 19 back then?
Yeah.
I guess I feel like I'm so much older. I'm only 3 years older than you.
Yeah. So that was probably in the editing stage. I might have shot a little bit at the very beginning of when I was hanging out with you guys, when I first fell in with you guys.
Well, I remember you one of the times we were hanging out, you were telling me, oh, I got access to, this archive of all these old wrestling footage that nobody else had access to. Yep. And I was so happy for you because I loved wrestling and I knew you were doing something involving wrestling. I was like, bro, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was during that time where I was just trying to put together, and I needed all the B-roll and I needed photos, and I would, I remember we drove out to the middle of nowhere. Some guy had this collection of photos that he owned, and we drove out there with a scanner. We're like, can we just come scan everything? And he's like, yeah, all right. It's like, and we were just going through hell to get some of that B-roll and stuff, because WWE owns all wrestling footage.
Yeah.
So it was difficult to put that stuff together. So yeah, it was during the editing process that I met you guys, and so when I wasn't at whatever that place in Bridgewater was watching you guys play. What was that place called?
Oh, it was Sparks. There was
Sparks. Yeah.
There was Hamilton Street.
Well, yeah.
There was a
there
lot
too.
of places. I had Brent and Nick in here last week.
Awesome.
We're reminiscing about our Scene Kid days.
Yes, a bunch of people I haven't talked to in 10 years, but I miss dearly. But yeah, so it was in the editing process. So if I wasn't with you guys, I was in a weird little edit room on the top floor of Kane University's building.
So how long did it take editing before eventually it was officially finished?
That came in stages. At one point I hired an editor who had done this boxing documentary. I was like, oh, this guy gets it. He knows how to cut story with action. And I was like, this is going to be awesome. Sent him all the footage and talked to him about how I saw it and the story arcs and laid out the whole thing. And it came back and it was just a steaming pile of shit. And I was devastated because I paid him every penny that I had. I was devastated. And I was like, wow, this guy sucks. Like, he doesn't get it at all. And I'm not saying what turned out, like, if you've seen the movie, it's not great, but it was way, way worse than what it turned into. And I said to the professors, I said, oh my God, what am I going to do? And that's when they said, all right, look. And they must have gotten together on their own and set up this edit system for me and set up this room that was like a storage closet or something. And they turned it into an edit suite for me. And they gave me the key. And I think they saw that I was,
That's
fucked.
awesome,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. So, that's where, if you never think it's done, and at a certain point I was sitting down, they were coming in and watching it and watching it and watching it. And finally, I think, we got to a, whatever, cut number 600 or something, It was probably, honestly, a cut like in the 40s, like, 44 or 45 or something. And they said, I think this is it. At a certain point, you just got to say, okay.
Yes.
All right, that's it. Yeah.
You gotta let it out.
You
got to
birth it.
Yeah.
It can't stay in gestation period for
Just clench your
forever.
teeth and bear it.
Yeah.
So the premiere was at Kane University.
Yes.
In 2011, that was?
Yeah. 10 or 11, yeah. Something
So
like
what was it like? What was the reception like?
that was horrifying.
Yeah.
That was absolutely horrifying. Because at that point, me and the producer had seen it. And then there was a secret screening that happened at a wrestling event in a room in a hotel room that we had, like one of those conference rooms. We had rented the conference room, and it was me and the producer and Kevin Sullivan and Terry Funk and superstar Billy Graham,
Jesus Christ,
and Mike Graham and Bill Apter from Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and that was it. That was the whole room, and I wanted them to see it first because first and foremost, I felt like to my knowledge, at the time, I was the first person who had made a documentary who had actually worked in wrestling. And, other guys had done documentaries. Barry Blaustein had done Beyond the Mat.
Yeah, it's the only other one I know of besides
Huge,
yours.
there was Wrestling with Shadows about Bret Hart.
Okay.
These are amazing films. But there was criticism from within the wrestling world. Oh, these are outside Hollywood people. They don't know wrestling. And not that I was, by any stretch of the imagination, some seasoned wrestling veteran.
No. Yeah.
But
you were a few levels closer.
Yeah, I mean, so I felt a real responsibility, first to wrestling, second to the film industry or the movie world reception. My first concern was the wrestling business. I wanted the wrestlers to be like it or not, whether they like the movie or don't like the movie. Well, he did a fair job.
Yeah, it's not inaccurate.
That's it. You know what I mean? I don't care if they think it's the worst.
Inaccurate.
Inaccurate. I think.
I don't talk no good.
I don't know. I'm flying by the seat of my pants. But so that screening to me meant the world. So the premiere was nerve-wracking because it was the first time outsiders were seeing it. But at that screening,
those are the real people. That's your target audience.
That's it, man. That's the people I cared about, and especially not only like the type of person I cared about. That's the people I cared about.
The exact people.
I mean, Terry Funk was sitting front row.
Jesus.
You know, next to him is superstar Billy Graham. You know what I mean? Like it was a mind-blowing experience. And when it ended, you know, everyone was nodding and going, "Yeah, good job, great, yeah, you did it." And Terry came up to me, and we were at this hotel that had a bar, restaurant thing, and he said, "You know, I think you really got something there. Do you want to go to the bar and talk about it?" And I said, yeah.
You poke shit in the woods?
I was like, yeah, I do. You know, and he just reassured me that he felt like it was a good representation of the business.
That's like the ultimate seal of approval.
Yeah, that's it, man. So that to me, you know, so that I had that weight off my shoulders in a lot of ways. The first public screening was a weird cacophony of emotion, you know. There was a weird thing that happened at that premiere. So Trent was there. Let me start by saying that Trent was there because he was still alive and he was clean at that point, as he was at the end of the film. I was really nervous about how he was going to react to the movie because he was extremely open with me. I didn't know if he was going to regret that or not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because here he was, like, really fucking laying it out there. You know, and he had this, you know, demons that had taken over his life in a big way. You know, and he had gone to jail, not prison, but jail for 9 months or something. And then when he got out, I shot an interview with him that is not pretty by any standards, either content-wise or aesthetically from a filmmaking standpoint. But I shot a 3.5-hour interview with him where he just about, I was born on this day, and this is the first time I did this, and this is the first time I did that, and then I OD'd here, and he just laid it out. And
Just raw.
It was fucking heavy. That's another one of those days I'll never forget. You know, I don't know where I was. I met him at some house that he was staying at. In Pennsylvania. I know whose house he was at, but I don't know where it was. I don't remember where it was, but I just remember like going to what felt like some random house, and he was staying in like some back bedroom of it. And he was just laying on the couch, and he's like, "Get the camera going, I'm ready." And I was just like, "Okay." And we just rolled, and you know, it was heavy, you know. So that was really intense, and I was nervous that he was gonna just, again, in the same way I wanted the wrestlers to feel like I had done the wrestling business justice, I wanted him to feel like I had done his story justice.
Yeah.
And that's a big responsibility.
Absolutely.
You know, and I was a dumb little fucker. You know what I mean? Like, I was a kid with a camcorder. You know, I am not, at that point, a filmmaker by any reasonable definition of the term. You know, so I was nervous, you know, really fucking nervous. You know, and coupled with that, all of my friends are there, you know, who I really value their opinions. My family's there, who I've been, you know, living at home, not doing anything money making in years.
Supporting you through all this.
Yeah, literally. You know,
Your father, this better be good.
yeah, I mean, it's like shit. You know, it's like this really better be good. You
Yeah.
know? At that screening was also a bunch of really random, amazing people showed up. Howard Finkel from the WWF, the ring announcer, like the voice of, like, you know, the voice from WrestleMania my whole life, like, it showed up. "Tim, I'm excited to see the film." You know, I was like, this is ridiculous. You know, through the movie, I met Gorgeous George, the valet from WCW, who at the time was married to Doyle Wolfgang von Frankenstein, guitar player of the Misfits, who, if you ever met me, especially at that time, was my favorite band by a landslide.
Well aware.
I don't think I owned anything that didn't have that stupid skull on it. So he walks into my college. I'm like, this day is ridiculous. I can't handle any of this.
I'm about to shit my pants. I'm so excited.
It was like, it was fear and excitement, and like, it was just such a weird experience, man. And yeah, I mean, my first concern, you know, I knew I had to get up and say like, "Well, fucking here it is," you know. I'm sure that's pretty much what my little speech was. But you know, when the lights came up, I ran to the front of the room to Trent, and I you know, pushed my mother out of the way, and I just like, "Okay, not now. I gotta like check on this." And I just went up to him, and he didn't say a word. He just grabbed me and hugged me. It's like, oh fuck, thank God. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's a heavy responsibility. So,
Well, I mean, there's got to be like a level of worry where it's like somebody who has struggled with his own demons and could, be volatile at sometimes.
Sure.
Like,
Sure.
God forbid, he didn't like it.
Oh, what was I going to do?
Yeah.
I still don't know. I don't know what the answer was if he didn't approve of it,
Mm-hmm.
But I was really concerned about being really fair,
Mm-hmm.
when I made this thing. Fair to everyone in it, fair to the business I was portraying and filming, and, just fair.
It's got to be tough to balance that, too, because obviously you want it to be good. You want it to you want it to make an impact.
Yeah.
But like you said, you want to be fair because it's people that you actually give a shit about.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to, you don't want to burn those bridges. You don't want to.
I probably could have made a much more entertaining movie.
Yeah.
If I wasn't so concerned.
If you didn't have a conscience.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, I mean, I do feel like in a lot of ways I was a different person when I made that movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I scrapped and fought and went places that I would be horrified to go now. You know what I mean? I mean, when Trent was in jail, I fought to get an interview with him in jail. I literally had a yelling match with the warden of the jail over the phone in the hallway of my school. I was yelling at a warden of a jail. I'm a kid. It was just balls. I had balls like, grapefruits. I was just, and I look back now, and me now, I'm in bed. Like, I don't want to do anything. I want to live my life and eat dinner and come home. And I'm still tired from making Card Subject to Change 10 years ago, That's just like a different person. It was a different energy. I had nothing to lose, and I was just going for it. But I was super conscious about being fair.
How do you think the making of the whole film changed you? Like, as a person? I'm sure there's no way it didn't.
It might sound like a big statement, but I think it is the reason I am who I am. It's the most formative experience in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I think getting into wrestling at 14 in the wrestling business did a lot to form, that changed a lot of me. I saw a lot of shit I probably shouldn't have seen when I was real young. I was around a lot of people, not that I shouldn't have been around, but like I had no business being around, and sort of an atmosphere I really shouldn't have been around. I come from like the most white bread family, like just the sweetest people, you know what I mean? Like they're just nice, like Beaver Cleaver fucking family.
It's a nice down home family.
Yeah, like it's just a really nice family.
Next thing you know, you're interviewing some guy in a fop house in Philly.
Yes. You know what I mean? Like I come from, but even before that in wrestling, 15, in locker rooms with, locker room talk.
In the words of our president.
You know what I mean? Like, these sorts of things.
And they were literally probably grabbing people by the private parts.
Yes, they certainly were. They certainly were. It's just like I got a real education, in the world sort of quickly.
I think those are the most interesting people, too. It's like
Yeah.
they're exposed to things at a young age that, maybe cooler heads might not have signed off on.
Yeah. Oh, if my mom knew anything of what it was like being around wrestling, no way. She would have put an end to that immediately.
Shit, I remember my mom found out my dad was showing these Steven Seagal movies. She almost had a conniption fit.
No fucking way. She would have put an end to that immediately.
Yeah, well, that's also one of the most formative things for a young man is hanging out with adults and people who are.
Yeah.
I don't want to say mature because
certainly-
age is never
certainly
really a sign
not.
of maturity, but
Certainly not.
just
no.
older people, more experienced.
Yeah.
It really is an
Yeah.
education that you can't get anywhere else.
No, yeah. So that being in wrestling formed me in a big way. I think for the better, because I think I saw it, and I thank God I was I saw it in horror. You know what I mean? I didn't see a lot of the stuff I saw and go, "That's fucking cool."
Yeah. You know, it's almost like when you're a young man, you're almost protected by your own naive idealism.
Yeah.
It's like, I know what's right, and
Yeah.
I know what kind of person I am.
I think the other thing for me is I'm by nature a huge pussy, like just scared of everything. So I think I saw everything and I was really scared of it. And if the idea of it scared me, like if cocaine, I can cocaine. 15, I saw a guy do cocaine, like 10 feet from me. I was already scared of the idea of drugs. You know what I mean? Like, no, a dare worked on me.
Yeah.
Officer Mike, it worked. Like,
Yeah, job well done, sir.
A dare worked, man. And that just reinforced. I was like, oh, what I just saw, that was terrifying. You know what I mean? Like those things, but had I been the type where I go, that's cool. I want to do what that guy just did.
Well, that's the thing. Your
changed,
mindset is not necessarily the norm.
So yeah, in that way, I'm glad that I was the pussy I was. But but yeah, no, I saw a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have seen. But I think I came out sort of better in the end.
So you don't have any kids yet?
No.
You gonna?
Yeah. Eventually. Yeah.
Say you have a son. Do you think, because we're talking about this, obviously, as a young man seeing things maybe you shouldn't have seen, or maybe we're too young to see.
Yes.
You seem like a pretty put together person. You seem pretty operational and functional.
You also haven't talked to me in 10 years, so you don't know what I'm doing.
I mean, I don't know. At face value,
Yeah, no.
you seem to not be falling apart in front of me.
No, everything's okay.
But what do you think? Because that's a common question I know a lot of parents kind of struggle with is, do you want to expose your kids to some of the harsher realities of life, or do you want to protect them? Because that's, it's like the rich guy who he wants to give his kids everything he doesn't have,
right.
But in the process he ends up taking away any sense of struggle and any sense of hardship, and he just gives everything to them, and now they become spoiled and they don't appreciate the world and what they have the way he does. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's tough.
Like
it's a tough question. That's a big question, man.
Dude, listen, there's not necessarily a right or wrong
no,
answer.
I think you're a lot better off not being shielded from a lot of that stuff, because I think, I've known people in my life, or I've seen people's kids or whatever who, had like helicopter parents.
Yeah.
And then turn 21 and lose their fucking minds.
Oh, yeah. That's a common one.
So, like, I would rather them be at least see the reality of life, you know what I mean, in a certain way. I would just hope that they would sort of react to it the way I did. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's obviously going to have their own reaction to it. Yeah. I would hope they come out of it, better off.
That's the scary part of being a parent. It's just kind of...
Because who the fuck knows?
Yeah, you got to let them go at some point and hope you did a good enough job raising them.
Yeah, and I do think, like I said, I think, a lot of things that I was around, I shouldn't have been around by any stretch of the imagination. It wasn't all bad, No,
I'm sure.
Yes, I saw a guy I saw a gentleman do a line of cocaine off a high school bench in a high school locker room.
Sure it wasn't the first one.
No.
For him or the bench.
Right. So it was just like a weird, like, what is going on? Like, come on, guys. Like, get it together. A female wrestler also showed me her breasts when I was 15. So
why shouldn't she have?
So it's like...
It was it was consensual.
It wasn't all bad.
Yeah.
I didn't just see bad things.
Yeah.
I think you can't, shield your kids. I mean, have you ever heard? I think you talked about it on the podcast I listened to that you did with Tony and Drew, Rumspringa.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they'll go ballistic.
Exactly. As soon as you give them that one taste that they've never had before, they have no idea how to balance it.
I'm not saying expose kids at a super young age to a bunch of terrible shit, but I'm saying don't shield them in an unhealthy way.
I'm not going to take my 8-year-old son to a titty bar, but at the same time, I want to. Yeah, let him get toughened up. It's like your immune system.
Yes.
If you're not exposed to any kind of germs or anything,
right.
Your immune system's going to be weak because it won't know how to deal with
That's
it.
That's right.
So I think it's a good rule of thumb for raising young boys.
I think that's fair.
You made me think about my first time at a titty bar now.
I'm not a titty bar guy.
I'm not. When I was young, 18, the novelty of it.
Yeah. I only went once.
Yeah, that's it?
Yeah. I went once. It was like a week after my 18th birthday with my friend Rob, who is the reason I know you guys to begin with.
I forgot about Rob.
Yeah. That's he was in. He liked it. He was into it.
No, listen, I was too.
I mean, come on. But I was so uncomfortable with the whole thing.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I know no one listening knows me, but like I am kind of like the Larry David character on Caribbean. Like that's kind of me. So I just went there and I was just like, oh, this place is dirty and I don't feel safe. And then a girl my age was like naked in front of me, and I was like, this is weird. It's just like, I feel bad for you, but I know I shouldn't. Like, it was like a whole thing. I'm too in my head for that kind of stuff, man.
What's the thing? You either love it, hate it,
Yeah,
or just completely indifferent.
yeah. I was glad to get out of there.
Yeah. When you were, filming,
Yeah.
did any of the guys get you in any uncomfortable situations?
Oh,
Any kind of mischief or chaos?
yeah, there was a fair amount of mischief and chaos. Nothing. I'm trying to think of the stories that I can tell.
Yeah, I don't want to incriminate
forum.
anybody.
Yeah, nothing incriminating, but a few people's spouses might not be happy about the situations. There was a bunch of. It was fun. It was a bunch of fun stuff, and Kevin Sullivan is hysterical. His this is not like nothing. No, we went to a titty bar once, and with Kevin, and the strippers weren't there. We walked in, and the strippers hadn't gotten there yet.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it was like noon or something, and this is great. He and I and the producer get there, and we're like, wow, it's really quiet. And whatever, manager comes out and goes, yeah, the girls don't get here for like another hour, but the kitchen's open if you want to eat.
I'm just seeing like the bartender from Dumb and Dumber. Hey, we don't open for about another hour.
So that's what
I'm meeting someone here.
Yeah, so that's basically what happened. We actually ate. We actually had their food and didn't see any tits or anything.
Well, that's a common thing up here in Jersey, at least. You can go have
Yeah.
breakfast at the titty bar.
Yeah.
Legs and eggs.
Yeah, so we didn't get to see anything. Yeah, no, there was a lot of pretty ridiculous experiences. But.
So, anything else? Are you going to be any more films coming up? I remember you telling me you had a few things simultaneously that you were working on. But I know as any creative person is, some things get started and never get finished.
Yeah, that's basically the story of the rest of it. After Cards Are Change, the first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to do a similar project, covering the different sort of the lifespan of a. In the way that Cards Are Change covers the lifespan of a wrestler, guy just starting out, guy at the end, people in the middle on their way up. I was interested in doing that with stand-up comedy because I saw real parallels between wrestling and stand-up comedy. So I put together a project, and actually someone connected me with Jim Brewer. And I pitched the project to Jim, who had a production company at the time. And I said, I would love to do this film. And I obviously, I think you could be great in it and producing it and all that stuff. And he took it on the project and started working on it. And it was one of those things, in the way that projects sometimes spring up, they also die in really weird ways where like 3 weeks later, like, oh shit, the project just died. You know what I mean? Like you don't even realize like how it falls apart. All of a sudden you're just working on something different, and you realize that the thing you intended to start was gone. So that project never finished in that way, but I ended up working with Jim Brewer for quite a little while. And I got into the world of comedy. I worked with comedians for a while, so that was kind of awesome.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
especially like in the podcast space where those are some of the most common podcasters, are stand-up comedians. Yeah.
No, that was another world that I got thrust into, sort of in a weird way, and in an accelerated way.
Was it supposed to be focused on like up and comers in the same way as Chord Subject to Change?
Yeah, up and comers and sort of the other end, So Brewer as the headliner, he was doing theaters and stuff at that time, which he's still doing. But you know what I mean. He was at that level, selling out large, 1,500 to 5,000 seat theaters, and then there's kids doing open mic, and everything in between. So I wanted to cover all of that, and I had a club owner who I was filming with. It was the whole.
Was it not at the Stress Factory?
It was, yeah.
Oh, it was Vinny Brand?
Vinny Brand, yeah.
Shout out to the guys at the Stress Factory, too.
Yeah, I love those guys, too.
Shout out to the Keep It Basement podcast. Hey. Mike Sweeney, Tom Zappia, Alex Nicholas.
Look at that.
Two of those guys are comedians.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yo, get me on your show, boys. What the fuck?
I spent a lot of time with the Stress Factory. A lot of time with Vinny. Yeah, worked on a project with that. That's actually what ended up happening. Is I stopped doing the project with the documentary project and ended up working with Vinny on a project.
Okay.
Again, one of those things that sort of comes and goes and never really sees the light of day. That was a really fun project.
How could it not be?
It was awesome. Yeah, Vinny's awesome, and and the people over there everyone was awesome. And that project, looking back on it, we filmed with people who I had no business filming with. I mean, we filmed with Amy Schumer.
No shit. And that was back before she blew up.
Yeah. Mark Maron, right when the podcast took off.
Shit.
Yeah. So, but and it was a really fun project. Unfortunately, it never saw the light of day.
I gotta ask, how was Maron? Because he was
awesome.
It was through his show on IFC that made me like, oh, so he's got a podcast. I heard people talk about it. And his show was the first one I ever listened to. WTF. So he was my introduction to this whole
filmed
world.
with him very briefly. It was it was like scene work. We were doing little scene work, sort of stuff where Vinny would interact with different people. Filmed with him very briefly, but yeah, he was very accommodating. He was very easy to work with.
Oh,
so
awesome.
was Amy Schumer. Amazing.
I'm just glad he wasn't a dick.
No. I have only one person was ever a dick. I'm not going to say who they were. Because
You tell me later.
I'll tell you later. One person was a super dick.
Really?
And they were a I don't want to say who they are because I'm nobody, and I have no reason to shit on anyone who's successful because they are successful. But like compared to the other people who we got to work with on this project, he was a nobody.
Yeah.
And he was the biggest dick, and I was just sort of like, dude, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
this is necessary.
Give me a break. It was one of those like, give me a break. Because it was a little dumb shoot. It was like me and a camera, and we were just doing a little whatever. And he was just sort of like about it. And I was like, Maron was super cool about it. Amy Schumer did takes and scene work, and she was awesome about it. I was like, guy, come on.
Yeah.
But
let's be real.
Yeah. No, but everyone else other than this one asshole was very, very cool. And I was just blown away by the people I got to be around.
That's fucking cool, man.
Yeah, that was another world that I fell into, stumbled my way into, and got to work with some people who, again, I have no business working with. So that was really cool.
Isn't it crazy how you see somebody who at the time is, they're kind of known, and then you see them years later and they're ginormous.
Yeah. The one person who I got to work with who I loved working with, and I keep in touch with him a little bit. I haven't talked to him in a while now, but Judah Friedlander.
Okay.
And I got to work with him right after he was done with 30 Rock. And I was filming some of his stand-up stuff in the city, and I would just go follow him from club to club. And it's a weird. I had been around wrestlers who were recognized. I spent a weekend with Sting. And even outside of makeup, he's recognizable. And Lex Luger got stopped, and people get stopped. Out in the public. Wrestlers a little less than normal celebrities.
Yeah.
But Judah Friedlander, just off of 30 Rock, him walking from one club to another, he had to stop like every 2 seconds for
Jesus
like
Christ.
people wanted to take pictures with him and stuff. He's absolutely one of the nicest. He's so awesome. I can't say enough.
That's really cool.
Yeah, he's the best. I cherish my nights running around the city with him. He also showed me some of the best restaurants in New York.
All right, so we're coming up on an hour and a half here.
Really?
You got anything you wanna plug? Anything you wanna shout out?
Cards Are to Change was re-released a couple months ago on Amazon Prime. It is extended by like 40 minutes. There is new footage in there. It's called Cards Are to Change: Extended Edition, as it would be.
If you have Amazon Prime, it is included with your membership. So
yeah, it's free. You have literally no excuse.
Watch the shit.
And don't feel like you're paying me because I get barely anything. So pennies, not even less than pennies per view.
At the very least, watch it to see what Tim spent years of his life working on.
Yes, years. So that's on there. That's kind of all that's out there publicly.
All right, dude. I really appreciate you coming by, man.
No, this is amazing.
I'm really happy we get to talk about this.
I hope anyone cares.
Hey, listen. Hopefully, all three of my listeners will go check out the movie. No, but seriously.
If I see a spike in numbers,
yeah. Well, I'll let you know if I see that spike.
Thank you.
All right, people. So you know the drill. You reach us on APodAmongstMen@gmail.com for any comments, questions, or suggestions. APodAmongstMen on Instagram and Twitter. If you want to hit us up that way, DM us. Let us know what you think. Let us know if we suck. Don't really do that. Just tell us if we're good, or if you have any questions. That'll be better off. If you tell us we suck, I might get a little hostile, and I can't promise it will be a civil conversation from that point out. So just be civilized people. All right. So again, Tim, thank you very much, sir.
Thanks for
Card Subject to Change on Amazon Prime. Go watch that motherfucking shit. All right, and we will see you guys next week. All right, peace. Say goodbye.
Oh, goodbye.
Come on, man. Where's your manners?
See ya.